You know, the most frequently asked question I get about the workshop is, what is the most important tool? And I always respond by saying, the table saw. One like this, with a good cast iron table and a good rip fence, one that'll stay parallel to the blade, giving you nice true cuts. Now, if you buy anything any smaller than this, you might be a little bit disappointed, especially when you're trying to handle big sheets of plywood to build cabinets. Now, as good as this saw is out of the box from the factory, you can make it even more versatile by building some accessories, like this roll-around shop cabinet. Now, a lot of thought went into designing this. First of all, the casters make it easy to move into position. And the height of the top is even with the saw. Now, the choice of the laminate was not an accident. It was from experience, from accessories that we have on our shop saw. This laminate, I found, is very durable, and because it's slippery, almost like ice, makes it easy to push panels through. Now, the edges of the top are oak, so that they're durable. And I made sure I allowed the top to overhang the cabinet. And that's so that I would be able to use clamps like this and get a good bite to hold down maybe a router table or a surface planer. The base of the cabinet is made out of birch plywood, which is relatively inexpensive, pretty durable, and finishes up nicely. Now, you know how most drawers, they only open out about 2/3 of the way, and you're in there searching around trying to find something that got way in the back? I found some full extension drawer slides. These devices right here on the side. It lets it come out all the way, and they're strong. They'll hold about 100 pounds of weight. Now, for the doors, I didn't want any hardware to show to hang them. And I wanted them to be strong, so I chose these European hinges. And they're strong because this part of the hinge is mortised right into the door. Now, down below, you have a similar problem. If you have a fixed shelf, you never can find anything that's way in the back. So I got full extension shelf slides. And I put a band around the shelf to keep things from falling off. Now, down at the bottom, there's 4 swivel casters. I have a locking device to keep the cabinet from moving around as you use it. I'd also like to take a moment to talk about shop safety. Be sure to read, understand, and follow all the safety rules that come with your power tools. Knowing how to use your power tools properly will greatly reduce the risk of personal injury. And remember this, there is no more important safety rule than to wear these safety glasses. Now, here's some of the plywood that I picked up at my plywood outlet, and they offer a couple nice services. One is that I don't have to buy full sheets, which is especially good on a project like this because I really need 1 1/3 sheets. The other thing is that they offer a free cutting service. So I had them cut me some panels a little bit larger than what I need, and I'm going to true up all the edges using my table saw. Now, it's very important to use a good blade when you're cutting veneers. It should be one that's designed for cutting veneer plywood, and carbide tips, and notice how many teeth. In this case, 60. And what that'll do is minimize any chipping of the veneer. So now I'm ready to size the panels. The next operation is to do some dadoing. You need a dado along the top of all the cabinet sides. And that's to receive these corner blocks. Suppose you could just nail them in place, but by sitting them in a dado, you get a bigger glue surface and just a stronger block. Because this block reinforces the top of the cabinet and gives me a place to fasten the countertop. I also need a dado that runs down along the inside of the side panels into which the back will fit. And there's one more set of dados down at the bottom of the side and back panels into which the fixed shelf will fit. Okay, I'm going to dry assemble a couple of the pieces of the cabinet to show you a detail here. Now, all the edges of the veneer plywood that show I'm going to cover with this thin birch veneer. I'm going to put a piece here, and I'm actually going to put a piece here to cover up the dado that I don't want to see. But I'm afraid that if I don't fill that dado, this veneer is too thin and not strong enough. So I'm going to fill the void with some little pine fillers and just use some hot glue to hold them in place. Well, now it's time to put some veneer on the edges that are going to show. And I've used a couple different methods over the years. One is to just buy regular veneer and apply contact cement to the edge of the panel and to the back of the veneer and just glue it on and trim it off. A few years ago, they started coming out with veneer that already had glue on the back side, and it was activated by heat. So you could just lay it over the edge, take an ordinary household iron, and just iron it on. The latest thing is this edge banding tool, and these really came about due to the fact that shops would want to produce a lot of cabinets and edges at one time. Just a roll of veneer and this little heat gun, which blows hot air onto the glue surface, heats it up so that it gets melted, and you bring out the wood onto the roller and just roll it along the edge. It works great. Now you want to make sure you keep even pressure against the roller, and you move at the same rate of speed. That takes a little practice, because if you go too fast, it won't stick right, and if you go too slow, it'll overheat. Now when you get about 2.5 inches from the end, you just strike this tool right here, which is just a cutter, and it shears off the veneer. You finish it off. Okay, now I'm ready to trim the veneer. And you'll notice that the veneer is a little wider than the panel, and that's really just to give you a little bit of a fudge factor so you can get it nice and even. Now I found that the best way to trim this veneer is to use a router. And I've equipped my router with a straight cutting bit with a little ball bearing which guides along the side of the piece. Now the standard procedure for using a router is to move it against the rotation of the bit. And really that's primarily for safety. But when you're trying to trim a very thin veneer like this, safety really isn't the factor. It's chipping. And in this case, you want to move the router with the rotation of the bit. Now to make sure that everything is absolutely even, a quick run over the edge with the sander, and that takes care of it. Well, now I'm ready for a little assembly. A little bit of glue in the dados. And then when you're working with veneer plywood, it's also a good idea to put a little bit of glue right on the edge of the panel that's going to fit into the dado, because the veneer tends to absorb the glue quickly.